General Jack Keane, thank you so much for your time. President Biden can't spare our region an aircraft carrier, but he is sending his national security advisor to ask China to play nice in the meantime. What's going on?
Well, first of all, we have a major problem in the Middle East. The Iranians have operationalized all of their proxies to do two things. One, to destroy the state of Israel as a sovereign power and reduce people's willingness to live there. And two, to drive the United States out of the region. As a result of that, they have attacked the United States bases in the region in Iraq and Syria over 200 times since the Biden administration came into power, and 135 times since Hamas invaded Israel. The second thing is the Iranians have operationalized Houthis who have shut down the Suez Canal, if you can believe that. That's actually happened. They have fired ballistic missiles at the naval ships that the United States has in the region to try and defend against the shutdown of the Suez Canal. And blessedly, we have not been hit by those ballistic missiles. We came within a few seconds of that happening, and we had 300 sailors on that ship, which would have been quite devastating. Hamas is waging a war against Israel in Gaza. Hezbollah is also waging a war to a modest degree, not as completely as Hamas in northern Israel. And the reality is that the United States needs to bring resources into that region to ensure that Israel is going to survive. So what has happened is we brought a carrier strike group that was on its way to the Middle East to replace the one that is there. And that one will eventually go home. But given the sense of hostilities there, I believe the administration has made the right decision to keep both of those carrier strike groups there. As a result of that, you have rightly indicated the exposure of the United States weakness. We do not have a carrier strike group in the Indo-Pacific region, and that strike group is in San Diego right now, going through maintenance, and it'll be a number of weeks before it's able to return. So what is really happening here? I've been on a national congressional commission for the last 20 months, and we have identified the fact that China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran are cooperating, coordinating, collaborating together to take advantage of United States weakness in three areas. Europe, Russia has invaded. The Middle East, Iran has done exactly what I just indicated. And President Xi has increased his aggressiveness over the last 3 years. And the United States does not have the capability, even with our allies and partners, to push back on all three of these geographic interests, which are vital to the United States security, because we have depleted our resources over years involved in the 9/11 wars and permitted the Obama administration to kneecap us for 8 years in terms of resources, and the Biden administration has done much the very same thing. So here's the point. The United States Navy maritime forces are getting smaller, and China's are getting larger. They're at 355, 360, and we're in the 280s and getting smaller. The United States Army is the smallest, Andrew, it's been since prior to World War II. We can't find those similar numbers. The Air Force is the smallest it's been in 40 years. Now, numbers are not the only issue, but the reality is at some point, quantity has got to have a quality all of its own. And it's shameful what is happening here. We are risking U.S. security, to be sure, and that of our allies and partners at the same time.
That is a very frightening picture you paint, General. And should add to that, of course, that China has been narrowing that technological gap that the US has also been relying on. So the US has 2 aircraft carriers off the coast of Iran, clearly trying to intimidate it. It's got more ships and a nuclear submarine in the seas off Israel as a defense of Israel. At the same time, you've got Iran's top leaders suddenly saying he's now open to talks with the US about Iran's nuclear program, which experts say is now just weeks away from producing a nuclear bomb should Iran decide to do that. The Iranian leader says the talks would have no boundaries. Here he is.
There are no barriers, but don't pin hopes on them. Don't trust them.
Yeah, what's happening here is, I think this is grandstanding by the Iranians. It's something I would describe as a diplomatic diversion. The Iranians are not serious about any kind of negotiations. You know, the inspection regime that's done by the United Nations is the IAEA, and the Iranians have blown off those inspections for some time. They've dismantled the cameras that the IAEA has left at their nuclear sites. They're not serious about any negotiations with the United States. They have a new president as a result of Raisi being killed in a helicopter accident, and he has professed an interest in returning to some kind of negotiations with the United States. I think the supreme leader is sort of tolerating, you know, his desire in this direction, but it's not serious. I mean, give me a break. Iran, given what they are doing in destabilizing the Middle East and trying to destroy the state of Israel and driving the United States out of the region, and all the aggressive activity that they have undertaken, what our administration, the United States administration, should say to them: if you're serious about going into nuclear negotiations, our number one condition is to stop what you're doing to destabilize the Middle East. Stop shutting down the Suez Canal. Stop trying to destroy the state of Israel. Stop the 200 plus attacks against United States bases in Iraq and Syria. That should be the premise for any type of conditions. They're not serious about this. It's a diplomatic diversion, trying to move people's thought process away from the aggression and destabilizing impact they're having on the Middle East, and trying to offer an olive branch in the sense that, well, we're still interested in negotiations. Nonsense. It's rubbish.